Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League. Oh my gosh, we just had a crazy Rumble stage. Has MSI recovered itself? Do we never need to worry about the format changes again because we've all forgotten about it over the course of Rumble stage? There's going to be so much to talk about in this episode of Hotline League where Mark and I are sleep deprived because it's impossible to ever hold an international event in a time zone that is convenient for people in Los Angeles until Worlds this year.
Well, you don't know that.
That's true. That's true. Tickets go on sale and games start at doors open at midnight in in New York. And we'll be passing out sponsored blankets and pillows for people to take naps in between the games.
There's Chinese ticket sites you'll need to use.
Anyway, thank you to Alienware and Grubhub for sponsoring the show. My constant co-host Mark Zimmerman is here. How's it going, Mark?
It's going good. So as much as we can complain about the format, I have to say the games themselves mostly delivered. It's been a good Rumble stage. I think we have ended up closer to where we started than you ever would have thought in the middle. But more or less, it went to chalk in air quotes when you look at the end result. But it was a good ride to get here, and I had a lot of fun watching the games this week.
Went to chalk. I've never heard that phrase before. What I like?
I don't know. Let me Google it to make sure I didn't just make some shit up.
Okay. Well, we can always, just continue to use it. And
what does it mean to go to chalk? The term chalk in sports betting simply means that the side of the bet is the favorite to win that side of the bet.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So the four teams expected ended up in roughly the way.
In,
so Mark,
in roughly the order you would expect, yeah.
Just so you all know, this is evidence that Mark has gotten into sports betting recently. And
recently.
He's going to be very upset if results don't go well for him in the future on this show. He's going to be very angry.
I say what I want to move the line to help me make more money on my bets.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know the Vegas odds setters are listening to Hotline League.
So he always bets against himself, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, never trust against it because I'm trying to drive the line away from my bet.
Well, we've learned a lot this episode. Okay. So first off, I want to apologize about a couple things. One, we don't have a guest because it's actually really hard to get a guest that is watching MSI and is also available at this time because a lot of people are not, or they're traveling internationally or whatever. So it just made it tough. So we don't have a guest, but that's okay because there's enough to talk about that I don't think that we're going to need one. I tried to get Raz, but Raz was like, I'm busy during that time. So if he shows up in Twitch chat at any point in time during the show, you guys know.
As if he could never tune in for any reason other than I don't have 2 hours free in a row.
Yeah.
Or just doesn't want to do it.
Secondly, I woke up from a nap about 20 minutes ago because I'm tired. And it's actually really hard to cover these events internationally. I'm so fucking tired of having to do these inverted sleep schedules and interview players over Zoom. And they can't even see me. Did you know that, Mark? Now Riot has removed the ability for the people that we are interviewing over Zoom to see us. So they just put their headset on and my voice comes through and then they talk into the camera.
You should play a game show with them. Guess what's in my hand? And instead of doing an interview, you just play this. It's like 20 questions.
That would actually be such a hilarious way to like poke at Riot for not doing it. The problem is Riot decides what requests they decide to pass on to the teams. And so, that's a great way to get my requests not passed on.
It'd be a great sponsorship plug, though. Guess what's in my hand? It's an Alienware computer, an M13.
Yes. You know what I think teams love? They love it whenever I am showcasing competing sponsors in interviews with their players.
Well, what can you do? You got better sponsors than them. Don't be salty about it.
That's what I'll tell them
teams,
as they are denying all my interview requests. Okay. What else? Kelsey is upset that she no longer has access to sub calls. I don't. Yeah, that must be
it's
like
probably
a Kelsey issue, I think.
I feel like it's also a Travis issue where he just starts banning. He goes on these like rage sprees. If you mention cats or something, he'll start removing privileges. You know, he'll like unmod me for a little bit in his Twitch chat because I'm spamming something that he doesn't like.
What should we talk about on the show, Mark? We could talk about.
Okay.
Oh,
so
you have an idea?
So some actual things to talk about regarding MSI. I was doing the daily JLXPs with Jat, and like it's funny to listen back to them now to like hear the overreactions and like just in general to things because like T1 didn't just end second; they beat RNG at the last minute, and they've looked hella dominant even in their losses. You know, so it's like everyone was like, "Oh, T1's the best team with this tournament." Coming out of groups and like you were setting up to be like they were overrated the whole time, and then day one, end of day, this day happens. You're like, "Oh, maybe they're actually still the favorites for the tournament." And then like G2 going on that 0-5 run, you're like, oh my god, they're gonna get memed on so hard for fucking bustering out. Then they recover and beat NA again to 6-0, and it felt like all the funny narratives that we're building died on the last day, and that's where everything kind of went as expected. I think the biggest upset was EG not dropping a game to a minor region team. I would have to go back and check to see when's the last time NA did not drop to, I shouldn't even say minor region, other pool twos at this point. You know, like, has that ever happened before? Like, it's just weird to have our team be consistent.
Especially in a world where G2 is dropping them, right? Like that. Yeah, I think that was really fascinating.
G2 went 3-1 or 1-3 against the other pool twos, but somehow 6-0'd EG. It's like, what the fuck?
No, last night when I was thinking about this, because all the EU fans came out of the woodwork to be shitty whenever G2, like, sorry, not all. People really get upset whenever I paint with a broad brush. Some of the EU fans came out to be shitty whenever G2 6-0'd. And one of the things I was thinking about is, like, if at the start of Rumble stage you went to any fan and said, one team in this group will lose to Saigon Buffalo and drop both their games to PSG, and end the group 5-5. Like, which would you expect? And I feel like almost everybody would have said like EG. Like, it's actually fascinating that ended up being G2. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's a weird one. It's still been a weird like it's the weirdest way you probably could have gotten these results. Where like T1 dropped a game to EG for like the first time in forever. It feels like a Faker-led team has lost in North America
since CLG in MSI, like the first MSI, or I don't know, maybe the second. I forget when they became MSIs and not All Stars. But regardless, it's been fascinating. But to your point, like, we're kind of back where we expected to be. I mean, one of the things that was just really funny was we, like, on both this show and Rift Reaction, the show I did with Emily, like, one of the big questions we posed was like, will T1 drop a game? And then right at the start of Rumble stage, we get the answer to that question. So it's been a wonky situation.
Yeah, it's been weird.
I'm trying to think if there's stuff outside of MSI to talk about.
I like patch 12.10 hit, which will have very big implications to the game because this is like their making everyone die slower patch. But I don't think that's really relevant for this show.
Yeah, unless somebody has something crazy to say.
Oh, Belveth came out. She's the ugliest. I shouldn't flame it this hard. She does not seem to fulfill the fantasy that was promised from her pre-release marketing, is what I'll say. I don't know if you've seen any of this.
Yeah, it's like the monster. I don't know, what's that meme? It's like the monster you have versus the monster at home, or we have.
Yeah. Have you seen any of this stuff? I know we don't normally talk about this.
No, I saw the cinematic premiere, which looks sick and reminded me a lot of the like Diablo 4 cinematic in terms of just like, oh, like this is really fucking creepy and weird and all that stuff, and really well made. And then I've seen like gameplay clips and just sort of like
she just floats and slaps.
Yes.
Yeah. It's one of the things that prompted me. I had an Elden Ring tweet where I was just like sucking Elden Ring off, and you said I was spoiling about like they get presentation value so right in Elden Ring. Like if they say something's going to be hype, it ends up being hype. This is a minor spoiler. There's a character called General Radon, the Star Scourge, the Conqueror of the Stars. He learned gravitational magic to like conquer them. It sounds fucking hypey. They say he stopped the stars. Like, what does this mean? Like, this guy sounds insane. You fight him. It's awesome. It's incredible. And then when you beat him, the stars unfreeze because he's no longer stopping them. And you get this crazy meteor shower. It's like fucking amazing. And then this is like, it's the Empress of the Void. She's here to destroy your reality. All these other champions are scared of her. And then you see in the game, it's just like a fucking manta ray, just like, and I'm like, this thing's gonna destroy reality. Like, I just can't. I fucking can't, man.
It's just, I think it's just one of the side effects of like the way that the game, like, if the and I have no idea if it'll ever come out, but if the MMO ever comes out, I am sure they will execute on having this character look really cool. But there's only so much you can do whenever something is like top down and has to attack a tower and be roughly the same size as all the other characters in the game and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I get it, like, but it is funny how that.
It's just like, I just can't believe that like this creature is going to destroy the world by slapping it to death. Like, goddamn buildings, you know, like at least like Aurelian's soul for his power fantasy shoots it, like, it doesn't do the damage you think it would, but he shoots a giant, ever-expanding black hole down the lane. You know,
or like, Vel'Koz is a better comparison, I think, because it's
right,
like, like shoots a laser beam out of its eye.
Yeah, like Cho'Gath will like eat your face off. You know, like he'll actually eat you. Like Urgot will do like a meat grinder thing. Like all these other champs in the game have like, for the most part, Riot actually does do a good job. It's just that's I think why this one stands out so much of being so far away from the fantasy that was promised.
Well, you watched anything good lately?
Watching season 4 of The Circle. It's been good so far, but I'm scared because I've always hated the way they do their like final voting, and I don't know if it's changed for this season. I want to watch Love, Death, and Robots. This Survivor season fucking slaps. It's probably one of my favorite Survivor seasons ever, if not my favorite. I just like all the competitors, even the ones who I don't like them as people. They're still like fun to watch. Maybe. This has been incredible. Survivor. We watched Multiverse of Madness. Did I say that last time we were here?
Yeah, it was so bad.
It wasn't so bad.
Oh my god. This is what blows my mind, guys. This is what blows my mind. Mark is... Oh, I need to be careful about this because last time we talked about this, I got flamed in the YouTube
Spoilers!
No, there's I'm not going to talk about any spoilers. It just blows my mind because, like, that movie, so many of the dramatic moments in it's such poor execution, and it is like mega 90s cheese. And you, Mark, I consider somebody who is like very good at discerning like something that is actually pretty well made from something that is like failed in execution. Like, it is odd for me, for instance.
This is what it was going for.
We should probably like create a separate show where we discuss stuff. But it's like odd to me, for instance, that you have such an issue with like the later Matrix movies, but then you're like, oh yeah, but this Doctor Strange movie is good.
But
you know what I mean?
This is a Sam Raimi movie. It's like he does campy and cheesy, and I like Evil Dead. I like Drag Me to Hell. I like
sure,
campy,
but
horror.
But Marvel is not those things. Like Marvel has actually become a like well-crafted, like people could make fun of if they're commercial or whatever, but like generally speaking, you know what you're going to get whenever you go into a Marvel movie, and it's something that is like fairly sensical, fairly well executed, not cheesy. Like the moments are dramatic and well done, not particularly cheesy, and like this, and I do like that they have done like genre trope stuff, like they've like, this is our heist movie now, this is our whatever, but they still stay within the framework of what you expect from a Marvel movie, and like this was not that at all. Like if I wanted to go watch like a cheesy Sam Raimi movie, he should have created some like cheesy version of Everything Everywhere All at Once or whatever that's like horror or whatever. Like they should not have given him the reins to like a movie. Like for instance, you compare this even just to the first Doctor Strange movie, And like, I'm not even
Yeah,
saying
it's
the first Doctor
different.
Strange movie is like particularly great, but it is much more within the realm of what your expectations are for a Marvel film than like whatever the fuck that was.
I mean, I just don't care about Marvel. I don't hold Marvel to be like it has to be this way. Like
It
this is the Marvel vision. You know what? I don't care if they troll one of their things. I prefer this over Eternals. Eternals was just
it's
fucking
about
boring and bad.
expectations. Oh, everything is better than Eternals. That is the worst.
Yeah, that's my
comparison
point. It's
ever.
like, like I understand people might not like the Sam Raimi choices. I was laughing my ass off at how fucking stupid and cringe it was at points because it's just like I don't know. Like it's someone who knows what they're like. Either
You should not create like it's the same like it's the same thing as if they had him do like a Star Wars movie or whatever, right? Like there's an expectation. It's about promise versus payoff, Mark, and they failed at the promise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I tweeted out. I could see how most Marvel fans would fucking hate this movie, especially like if you're fans of these characters because it's such a whack ass movie. But I don't care, and I knew it was a Sam Raimi movie, and I knew it was going to be like this. And so my expectations, the promises that were given to me, paid off because they put in all the camp I was expecting. It was as campy as
what do you mean they put in all the camp you were expecting? You can't like expect somebody to walk into a movie and be like, Sam Raimi directed this movie. That means it's going to be this and this. Like even the marketing did not put in a ton of campy. Like I would even be more
That's
okay
the
with
marketing's
it.
problem.
Well, no, that's my point. Is that I would almost be more okay with it if they had correctly marketed this. If you look at
I would agree with that.
If you look at the marketing for this film, it is like this is going to become a badass Doctor Strange epic movie where he's like doing all this stuff, and what you get is like something that is the shitty off tone TikTok noise that people use. I need to send you a TikTok about that Kelby sent me previously about this.
I don't think I know the reference, so yeah, send it. But I mean, like, I agree the marketing did not help. I think they it's like they hired Sam Raimi to do this, but then when he did it, they're like, wait a minute, why did we do this? Like the studio itself.
I think they definitely should be asking themselves that question after that movie came out.
I mean, they probably should, but like, I don't know what you expected, because like, yeah, he's gonna do this shit, and like, when you say like, I do follow directors relatively closely, so like when I watch a Coen brother movie or like a Fincher movie or a Nolan movie, I kind of know what I'm getting a lot of the time, and so like, yeah, this was like what I expected the movie to kind of be.
Yeah, but when you watch those things, it's you know what you're expecting because the marketing like push it. Like you see, what's the famous Nolan movie with
Tenet?
Inception.
Yeah.
Like you look at the marketing for that, and you know the story that they're telling you, and like you understand what you're going to get when you walk in there. If I walked in there and it had been like a buddy comedy, I'd be like, well, this is weird. You know what I mean? And so I just don't. I don't think that like it is reasonable to. You walked in there because you're like, Sam Raimi makes shitty superhero movies, and look, he made a shitty superhero movie. That's great. I love how cheesy this was. It reminds me of the highly reviewed Spider-Man 3, where Spider-Man jumps in front of the American flag and poses.
It does.
And
see, you
dances in the street as like an emo kid. And wow, it's so great that I got what I was told.
I hated those as a kid growing up. I hated Spider-Man 2 and 3. But now as an adult, going back and watching those and knowing that he's just this fucking goofball, I actually enjoy them because I do like Drag Me to Hell and his horror stuff. So now like it's like a joke I didn't get when I was younger, and now I get it and I enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people kind of are on the outside. It's not like a high level like Gigabrain joke. I just mean like either it tickles your funny bone or it doesn't. And especially if you're like, Marvel is this. This wasn't what you expected, but it just depends where you got your expectations set from. If you got it set from the marketing,
so like, and I fucking hate this term. It's overused on the internet. I don't have a better word for it, so I apologize for using it. It's so fucking cringe. There are so many moments where I was just like, thank God this is a theater with the big recliner seats so that I can just slowly sink down in my chair and feel super cringed out at these moments.
I laughed at them. I laughed at them because they're so cringe. don't kill the part of you. What is that saying? Don't kill the cringe, kill the part of you that cringes. I killed that part long ago in that movie. Felt great.
Well, should we talk about League of Legends esports?
JoJo had a better rumble stage than Caps.
JoJo Pyun. Wow, we both fucked up. What did you
we
do?
can't fucking talk.
This is what happens when we're sleep deprived. Everybody, you cannot watch League of Legends esports content right now, including the broadcast, without hearing people stumble in their ability to say things because the Kobe Draco stuff was so unhinged. JoJo Pyun had a better international performance than Bjergsen's had in years and years and years.
Okay, so that one is probably actually not as contentious of a take. It's so funny because I tweeted one. I fucked up the tweet because I forgot. I thought the 2014 Worlds was the one where they preceded the #1 season to bracket stage. That was 2013, so I misspoke. But I tweeted that JoJo had done what Bjerg never did at a Riot tournament. He actually did that in 2014. Then I addendum it to be he had done what Bjergsen had only done once before in his entire career, and he did it in his first split at his first tournament. JoJo Pyun got out of groups. Then people, funnily enough, started talking about IEM, which I wasn't talking about. It's not a Riot tournament. Those don't exist anymore. There's no way for JoJo to go to a second tier tournament and win it for NA. There are no second tier international tournaments in the entire league ecosystem anymore. It's just an unfair comparison. So I'm only doing Riot ones. And then people were like, yeah, well, they did it without beating EU at all. And it's whatever. They beat T1 and they didn't drop a game to the or the other Pool 2 teams, which most NA teams do. I think JoJo had an incredible Rumble stage.
Yeah.
And I think the Caps point would be very contentious. I would have to go back and actually rewatch the games when I'm not watching in the middle of the night.
Is that the next Blame game?
No, maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided on this week's Blame game yet. But Caps had higher highs for sure. They were JoJo is never 1v9. And Caps sometimes was 1v9 and hard carrying them during the win streak. But then on that 0-5 streak, he was pretty bad. And even in the game that they broke the loss streak, I mean, I know he was put into a disadvantageous matchup into the Kennen in order to get broken. He did that for the team. But again, it wasn't he did anything that special. So JoJo was very consistent. Going up against Xiaohu, Caps, and Faker as a North American 17-year-old mid laner to not be a problem is actually incredible. Usually our mid laners go and get dookied on by other mid laners. And we're like, oh shit! There's just this gap, and there wasn't.
Because we've been sending EU mid laners.
there was no gap really. They might have played better than JoJo, but he was not getting gapped, which I think was very refreshing to see, especially considering that my Blame game coming out of group stage was that our young North American talent were arguably the weakest performers on the team. During the group stage, out of group stage, I would say it was between Inspired and JoJo as the best performer for EG.
Yeah. I mean, and it was cool to see. I don't know. One of the things I've enjoyed is that this team feels like it has gotten better over the course of the tournament. I interviewed Inspired and he kind of contested that a little bit, but normally I feel like we send teams and then there's just some issue where you're wow, the jungler just completely failed during this entire tournament or whatever. People can't seem to get their shit figured out, whereas I feel like EG's bot lane was struggling when we first got there. Mm-hmm. And then they got their shit together and started having some good games towards the end. And maybe in a different format that would not happen because this is 2 weeks of best of ones and endless games, and so they had the space and the time to actually start to get it together. But I don't know. I mean, it's been cool to see. It is hard to imagine another time besides maybe Team Liquid's MSI run, where in recent history, where it feels good to watch an NA team. And I know it sucks that we went 0-6 against G2, but I don't know, I felt pretty good watching EG in most of their Rumble stage matches, even the ones they were losing.
Yeah. I think even the losses were usually except for that most recent RNG one where they just got kind of stomped in the ground, there was at least like some competition to them. So I was happy watching EG. Some people were saying that it's not a mid dominant, like a mid lane meta, but I don't know what year you or what patch. That's how it was during the regular season. But the current meta, the most played is Ahri, then LeBlanc, Twisted Fate, Galio, Vex, Zoe, Silas. There's some Tryndamere, there's some Yasuo. Like, it's mostly assassins or burst mages in the mid lane. Like it's pretty skill expressive mid laners right now, with Galio maybe being the exception.
Well, there you go.
So I actually think.
Oh, good.
No, I was gonna say, like, I think the fact that JoJo was not getting exploited in this current mid meta does say things.
Let's get some callers going, folks. Let's help us figure out what to talk about, because I do think it could end up being a shorter episode. I know every time we say this, it never ends up being one, but there's not much that's happened outside of MSI this week, so feel free to get creative with your takes, because I think if we're all just going to take a bunch of calls that are like, secretly EG's better than G2, or I don't know, the West sucks, or so, it's like, I want to, not that we can't have those conversations, but hopefully we can kind of broaden our palette. So put your thinking caps on and think about more than just caps.
Something's wrong, because you said Kelsey lost her caller power. I can't drag people.
Really?
I can't say move to. I can kick them and disconnect them, but I can't.
Can you drag them to the room?
Yeah, I can. The move to button's just dead. I guess I have to drag them one room at a time because my Discord's too small to like. There's so many people in here.
It sounds like a Discord bug, because there's no reason why you should like.
Yeah, no. I was able to drag them. I just had to do it. Oh, I dragged the wrong person. Wait, I misclicked. Sorry, Kevin, and everyone else who I subsequently have to do this to.
Good luck.
Kelsey's trying to put a fucking amateur take on the show during MSI.
I mean, why not?
Top keck, Kelsey. What you want?
I just mean I'm a little worried that the show will feel a little one note. Normally we have at least one or two other things besides MSI going on, and like, quite frankly, while Rumble stage was entertaining, I will be surprised if there's like a bunch of fascinating takes to have over the next hour and a half plus, all regarding MSI. That's my take.
That's a hot take.
While you are pulling, folks, though, let's do some readouts. Okay, thank you to Dokimion, Billy Day Meyer, Sev TST, The Devious One, The High Ground with the Tier 2 photo LOL, Nuclei, Loco Beast, Zarth Pie, The Fish Gaming, Christabel, I Love You Chat, Jammin TST, Colombian, Takuchi, Vanilla, Teapot King, Dapopo, AWOL. Well, I'm probably ready, Mark. Whenever
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll go get someone.
Sure. Panda, Shadow Spectre, and Fish Sticks. Thanks, folks. Oh, and Rainy Day Vibes. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. Mark should be grabbing somebody next. Any moment now, he'll be returning.
Let's hope Discord works.
Kevin is here. Kevin, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from the DC area.
The DC area. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that EG has a higher chance of upsetting than G2 does.
Okay. Why do you think this?
I think over the course of the tournament, SKT has kind of leveled up, and a lot of their problems early on were meta-related and kind of the team comps they were playing. I think now that they're kind of shying away more from these like win hard super early and going towards team fighting more, you see them playing a lot more cleanly. And I think the last game against RNG showed that pretty well. I think they've cleaned up a lot of their mistakes, and they're a harder opponent. And as well, I think EG is a really strong team fighting team. So I think as the meta's been shifting there, we've seen like the Nocturne Galio picks coming out. I think that looks really good on them, and I think they have a good chance at taking some games off RNG.
So I think this is interesting because, yeah, I expected you to do more of a comparison between EG and G2, and then you took it kind of in the opposite direction of like who their opponents are.
I actually like that angle a lot, because I was going to argue, if you took the G2, I think a lot of people, given this is a North American show, would have taken the, oh no, G2 got lucky they beat us, but we're the only team they can beat, whereas we can beat T1 and yada yada yada. But I think the angle you took there, Kevin, is one I can actually get behind. I think there's a world where the best of one, the meta, too much self expectations they put on themselves, the same way that North America can crumble to pressure, like any team can do that. And I have a feeling that T1, for a factor of reasons, particularly what you're talking about, the meta and stuff, and like Guma Yushi, like just the interviews that Guma was putting out was like, bro, that's not a healthy mindset to have, where he's like, I played like shit today. And you're like, oh my God. And you could see he was struggling, but I think like he was also struggling probably just because he was freaking out.
Yeah, for sure. It has to be mentioned, as much as it's kind of been harped on for NA, the rookies that are playing. SKT also has pretty much 3 rookies playing, and the Korean community can be even crazier than the Western.
I mean, the only thing to note here, guys, is like while that was happening with Guma, pretty similar thing was happening with Danny. I mean, he literally tweeted like, "I suck. I'm going to retire soon," or something like that on Twitter. So I don't want to just like.
Why did he tweet, "I'm going to retire"? What?
So let me see if I can go find it. Yeah.
I mean, he deletes his tweets, so it's probably gone. But
oh, did he? I don't think so, because I replied to it and I looked at it again later. Let me see.
If you can link it in somewhere so I can look at it, because I didn't see it.
Yeah. Okay.
While you look for it, I'll say that
I found it. Okay. This was in reply to Impact. I'll put it in the Twitch chat, and then I'll link it to you on Discord, I guess.
Yeah. No, I got it in Twitch chat.
I mean, maybe he was just trolling, but he also like retweeted the tweet that I did about his interview.
Oh no, it was the core JJ.
Yeah. Yes. He said, "I'm just bad. That's why I retire soon." This was after EG lost the first time to T1, where they were just making some pretty big mistakes. So I don't know. I think Danny was struggling a lot too. And my interview, he seemed pretty bummed. He like quote tweeted it and was like, "This is real" or whatever. I mean, you can go see it on his tweets. Whenever I had tweeted out the video of him saying that he's been pretty disappointing. So I think he was struggling for a while. I'm hoping that sort of their victory against T1 and stuff will allow him to like get in the right mental mindset, but I don't want to pretend that he wasn't struggling mentally.
No, and to this point, because it's more about T1 compared to G2 and EG compared to RNG, I can also agree that like Danny was underperforming for a little bit. He mostly seemed to get the mojo back more or less by end of group stage. I think he was okay. But I think the point with the T1 angle for Guma and the drafts and the whole team's pressure and trying to keep this weird undefeated match streak alive was they did not play that well, but they just beat RNG. They finished second. A lot of their losses were throws around Baron flips because they kind of flip a lot of Barons. And they lost a lot of those flips that you don't always lose them. And in a best of series, there's more of a buffer, where in a best of one, it's just an L. And so like, even in their losses, they were almost always dominating for portions of the game. So I think there's an angle to be made that they are the best team in the tournament. G2 is a little flippy, and RNG, as good as they are, even though they finished top of the groups, was maybe the most consistent compared to G2 and T1 in terms of their performance. I think they're really good. I think this is a hard sell because I do think RNG is really good. But like, if I was going to go along with Kevin's line of logic, like this is the angle I would take is that T1's actually the best team in the tournament, and G2 is closer to the performance they showed in the second half, given that they lost to multiple Pool 2 teams.
I think the reason I struggle with this is, well, so one, I like it because, in one sense, because it kind of presumes that there's less of a chance for an upset than people might think. Like, just in coming at it from the angle of like, well, T1's been leveling up, et cetera, et cetera. So you might think that like EG's odds are bad, and they are, but G2's are worse. So it's kind of a funny way of saying like, we're almost certainly not going to get an upset. But I think the struggle is, it's just, we like, T1 has seemed so inconsistent. I mean, they've had games where you would not, if you took nameplates off, you would have never expected that it was an LCK team that was playing. And so I think what's been kind of funny is RNG has almost like flown under the radar this tournament because no one's fucking talking about them, because every other team is doing more interesting things, and those interesting things usually involve something boneheaded. And so like nobody's talking about RNG because they're just like showing up, sitting down, playing a game, doing the things they're supposed to do, and then winning.
It's
you know
kind
what
of
I mean?
funny. It's almost like the LPL and LCK have had a role reversal where all of a sudden the LPL team is like the consistent one and the LCK one is flipping it Baron and doing these crazy throws.
Yeah.
Here's another way to frame it, because I see what you're saying, Travis. I think there's a world where G2 are more likely to win a game against T1 than EG is over RNG. But EG is more likely to win a series over RNG than G2 is over T1. Because T1 might just throw one of their games at Baron like they always do. And RNG might just beat the shit out of us in 3-0 EG. But I think there's a world where Bin has a bad day, Wei has a bad day. That's probably one of the best matchups we can hope for, is Inspired versus Wei in terms of junglers. So there's an angle for EG fans to be like, you know, we are able to win topside, and RNG's early game is not insane. It's not T1's early game. And EG at their best just play face roll comps. And so you have good drafts that are face roll comps. You get some early leads, and you just kind of hope you can win these team fights. The way that EG kind of won playoffs in NA, it was like not like they were big braining people. They were winning team fights and skirmishes. The reason it's scary for T1 is because like you just assume at 15 minutes they're going to have a 3 to 5K gold lead every game, and that's really hard to win a full series against. Whereas RNG are not quite as dominant in lane. I think the bot lane is still a terrifying matchup though for EG fans, because Gala
I wanted to talk about next, because I was just thinking in my head down the line, like Impact and Bin, okay, I don't think that's, you know, really favored one way or another. Impact's got a lot of experience in a pretty deep champion pool. And then Xiaohu versus JoJo, that's probably JoJo's easiest matchup, like out of all the 4 teams. But man, bot lane definitely looks rough.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to debate, because to Travis's point, it's probably like a 3-1 or 3-0 for both series anyways.
Yeah.
I will just tag in here. I had the benefit of having done Rift Reaction earlier today with Emily, so I will just steal what she said, which was RNG is like a better version of EG when it comes to play style. And so this is like not a good matchup for EG because they both play similarly, and RNG does it better. So it's going to be difficult to imagine a world where EG comes out on top.
Yeah, they got absolutely fucking blasted, and that was maybe. I'm trying to remember the T1 loss. Was it absolutely brutal? The game that EG lost, the first loss to T1.
Yeah. Because that was the one
they were
where
just kind of slowly losing.
No, I don't think so. I think that was the one where they were just making really weird mistakes. Like that's the one that Core tweeted out and was memeing on, because it was so goofy. That's where he tweeted like, "There's a multiverse where like all of this stuff doesn't happen." But
that was a game that I think EG were actually looking relatively competitive in.
Oh,
yeah, the RNG game was definitely. No. You have it right. It is T1
way harder than SKT, or sorry, T1.
It was the T1 game, but like they were getting picks on Guma. They were actually playing okay. They were down gold, but they were like they were okay until Danny got caught.
And maybe like a team comp diff as it went on.
Yeah, exactly. So like either way, I think the RNG smash is the worst smash that EG had in playing or in Rumble stage. So they are scary. I do kind of agree. Maybe it's a bad matchup. I don't know. I think both matchups are hard for either the Eastern teams, or excuse me, Western teams to win.
Yeah, I tend to have more faith in the G2 roster than the EG roster, just because if you told me, with they both have high levels of variance, right, in terms of high highs, low lows. That's what I think we've seen about both G2 and T1 over the course of Rumble stage, and so I think that variance leads to a world where it's a lot easier to imagine G2 having a high high and T1 having a low low when they match up, and G2 coming out ahead because like T1 just did not roll their dice correctly. Thanks so much, Kevin, for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
At the same time, or maybe a little bit before, I saw Captain Flowers is streaming, and he's got a very nice beard right now. So shout out to that, Flowers.
Are you advertising a competing stream at this moment, Kevin?
I was about to go pull it open, actually.
Let's
see this beard.
Let's
see Captain Flowers' beard.
I missed a phone
Captain
call.
Flowers 22.
Dear God. All right, Kevin, thank you for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right. One final thing I'll say at the very end of that conversation is EU is much better than NA historically at international competition, which best of ones, group stages control your ass. There's a lot of times that G2 has actually done incredibly well at tournaments and had mediocre looking group stages, and so there's an angle that like we're all just being lulled to sleep, and G2 is actually significantly better than we think.
Yeah, I could see it. We're going to take a quick break to talk about Alienware, our sponsor. Thank you so much to everybody who has been using my code to purchase Alienware products. I think I just got a really nice message from Alienware today, and I think that they are very happy with how things have been going this year for the partnership, the relationship. So thank you to everybody who's been doing that. I've had a lot of people messaging me saying, oh, I purchased this or that or all these different things because of you. That stuff is incredibly helpful, so thank you. We are still working on that site upgrade, but alienware.com/Travis, go check it out. There's some cool stuff there. We're going to get it updated soon with some cool stuff. And thank you to Alienware for sponsoring the show. They make awesome things, and you all are awesome for supporting their support of our content. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you. Joe Badiah, thank you for the 14 months. Really appreciate it. I was going to purchase an Alienware laptop with Travis Gafford's code till I heard his Doctor Strange take. Why are people... Okay, I had a bunch of... Like, half the comments on last week's episode were about my Doctor Strange opinion. It is, like, fascinating to me that people... are that upset that they go leave angry comments about this stuff. I just like, please leave me alone. Okay, Joshua's here. Joshua, where are you calling from?
Hey y'all, I'm calling from Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Well, I wanted to talk about how G2's run and the loss streak that came after it is kind of just proof that the international gap is mostly mental. And it is at least small enough to be traversed by strategy for the most part, and that EG has a decent chance of winning MSI, and at least as good a chance as G2 does at this current state. And if you'd like me to elaborate now, I can.
Yeah, please do, because I think I'm having a hard time following a little bit.
Okay, so G2 was smashing everybody, 24-game win streak, right? Didn't lose a game during group stage, although that was against Order and EG. Started out beating RNG and T1. And I think that it's safe to say that in this tournament, at least in MSI, every single team does not look clean. Every single team, including RNG and T1, especially RNG, having been in the top lane, who's been running it down some games. They have Wei, who picks Bolivar and runs it down sometimes. T1 has Gumayusi, who has also been running it down.
They have players running stuff down.
Yeah, everyone's running things down. And so I think that the skill gap and the actual mechanical skill gap, no one is getting Chovied at the time unless you're like a minor region. Everyone in the major regions, at least, are staying within a decent, skill-wise, just mechanical skill-wise range that is accessible and leaves it open to where strategy and team comp can kind of just traverse the gap, if there is any gap, where there is mechanical skill. And I think that the teams, or this tournament itself, is more complicated in that we have to look at how teams play and their matchups. And I think kind of something that y'all were talking about in the last take is that how teams match up against each other, that I think T1 does just have a really bad matchup into EG because EG is really good at team fight and T1 is really apt to throw games later. But I think that something that a lot of analysts have talked about is that even these Eastern teams are not as good strategically are not ahead of the meta as they have been in the past. And I think that that can be seen in a lot of these teams thinking they kind of create scrim bubbles, and they think that certain things like a great example is the Callista, that it seems like a lot of the high tier teams started playing Callista and thinking that Callista was really good. And they kind of got into this scrim bubble where Callista was really good that, may have baited a few of the lower teams, but it's not actually that good. And what we're really going to see is that the strategy that comes out in these best of fives is going to dictate the course of these matches. So, if Peter Dunn and EG can come up with some kind of sick strategy, some flex picks, I think a good example of this is the most strategically advanced match that happened in the entire Rumble stage was probably the last EG versus G2 match with all the flex picks that came out. Strategically, this was probably like the most adept and smartest drafting that occurred the entire time, and shows that EG and G2 are probably a little bit ahead of T1 and RNG when it comes to strategy. And I think that can, even if they are not exactly as good mechanically, kind of traverse the gap where I think that all these four teams, each of these four teams has a decent chance of winning.
Okay.
I know that was kind of just a lot.
No,
a lot of ideas there. But yeah.
It's good. I mean, one of the things that it made me think about, that I had a thought over Rumble, was like, going into this tournament, there was so much ado about the 35 ping. And it was a lot of like, oh, you're going to see these like major mistakes where people are, you're like, oh, that was 35 ping or whatever. What's been fascinating to me is that I feel like teams are losing games more because it's like, why did you go do Baron at that point in time? Like, that's not a 35 ping decision. That's like a bad macro decision, right? Or whatever. Like, and so I don't know if, to your point, and some people in chat were talking about this too, where it's like, oh, the reason why we don't see games being decided on because of like split second mechanics decisions is because of the ping. But it really does feel like it's actually just like teams are making really weird strategic decisions, in some cases weird draft decisions, just like the decisions that they're making that are losing them the games are not the split second skill shots. It's the like broader things. I'm kind of curious what you think of that, Mark.
I don't know about that. There's been a lot of games that also have come down to mechanical, like the Danny one that we were just talking about. Like, shit, maybe he could have shifted that hook on 9 ping, 8 ping instead of 35. I don't know. It's like you'll never fucking know, and the haters will say no, it didn't matter, and copiumers will say, oh, he would have been fine, or whatever. I think there have been a number of mechanical plays where someone gets caught where maybe they wouldn't have gotten caught or something. And like, that's not always, like, it's just harder to notice that than a fucking 5-man int at Baron where like Callista doesn't walk into the Terracall, or like, they just like, it's just harder to know. Like, you will know with 100% certainty when a team fucks up at Baron, that was a bad decision, but you won't know if it was 35 ping or not when a player gets hit by a skill shot that they might have been able to dodge.
I think the ping is a little bit of a separate issue, but
I mean, this is not your point. I'm just responding to Travis about here a little bit about like, I think it's a like, it's confirmation bias. Like, you'll just think whatever you think because you'll never know either way if the ping was an issue or not. So the people who think ping was an issue will still think it was an issue, and people who don't think it's an issue won't think it's an issue because you'll never get proved right or wrong.
I guess I shouldn't say. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but I am surprised that what feels to be bigger moments of failure for top teams has frequently been like Baron flipping and stuff like that you would not expect out of these teams.
No, I mean, the Baron flipping out of T1 is, I mean, they have for a while been very ambitious around objectives, is what we'll say. So it's not too much of a surprise, but I think it goes to my point. Like, yeah, you're always going to see when someone fucks up at a Baron and get aced and lose the game. Like, that's just easier to see than a skirmish that doesn't go well.
Yeah.
I think that the most important thing that we're not seeing at this tournament, and that we've been honestly seeing less of at every international tournament that's occurred, is just less people getting completely lane gapped, like gapped to the point where the game is over. Sorry, excuse me.
You're good. So that was where I was going to go a little bit with your type. I don't think I fully agree. You made some points that I think are fair. I think like scrim bubbles and the Eastern teams not being ahead on the meta is actually very true. I think a lot of teams undervalued the importance of just good team fighting team comps, and objective bounties have looked very important at points, and just being able to win a fight despite being down a couple thousand. And so I think that point I do definitely agree with. And to the Kalista point, I think there are a number of picks that bait you in scrims, TF being one of them. Being a global champ that prints gold and can influence the map earlier, easier than any other champ in the game, basically, is a big fucking bait when you're in scrims to know if it's actually good or not. Same with Kalista, same with some of the early game other champs that don't seem as powerful later on. And bot lane as a meta, this is something I was talking about on JLXP that I'll repeat here, is the bot lane meta is the weirdest bot lane meta I think I've ever seen, where we're in a team fight meta and your bot lane is almost as decided by the AD carry counter picks as it is from the support counter picks. And a lot of traditional metas, you can pick things, power picks like Kalista Thresh, Kate Lux, Kate Karma, Lucian Nami. And you could technically do Lucian Nami, but it's getting banned out. But there's usually something that you could early rotation, AD carry wise, and be fine. Or you just slam either side of the Jinx Aphelios matchup because it doesn't fucking matter. And in this meta, your AD carry counter picks actually matter. Kalista shits on Ezreal. You have Tristana countering Kalista. You have it very difficult to blind your AD carry early on in a draft. And I think people have been doing that for the entire year up until around this point. And it's made drafting feel weird for a lot of these teams, that there's not really these obvious safe bot lanes that you can just slam early to then focus on your solo lanes and other things, which throws a big wrench in how historically people draft. Like, it's very common to draft bot lane jungler in your 1-2-3 unless you're power picking mid lane or something. And so I think there's a lot of weirdness going on in the current meta where it's a team fight meta, which AD carries are always important in team fights, but no one knows what the fuck to pick for their AD carries in these comps. And so I think that's part of the reason you're seeing this meta volatility that's going on right now.
I 100% agree with you, and I kind of think that that's my point, that T1 is the team that's insta-picking TF, and they have a high Kalista priority, that these Korean teams are the teams that right now are a bit behind the meta. They're just outplaying other teams. We're about to get into knockout stages where the real inherent advantage that Western teams have is they have larger and better coaching staffs. Like EG probably has like 4 or 5 coaching analysts put together, while T1 has like Holt and then 2 analysts. I mean, obviously Faker's a smart guy, but like that is the inherent advantage that Western teams have. And I think we're all kind of ignoring that going into these semifinals and knockout stages, that like they are right now behind the meta. They still have priority on TF. If we just agree that TF is a bait pick, like T1 was just first picking TF as of yesterday. So
are we sure that the West has bigger coaching and support staffs? Because it's actually something I'm not 100% sure on, and it hasn't been the case historically, so I would be surprised.
That's something that LS has always talked about, because he's like kind of was thinking about signing with T1, and he knows the scene in Korea, and he says that that's like the pay for coaches and the amount of coaching staff that we have and the minds that we have on almost every Western team is more than in Korea, and they just don't value it the same. So
I think it's definitely true for a lot of Korean teams that you kind of have like a coach and a couple other guys, whereas like in North America, at least, you have coach, those same couple guys, but then also probably some positional coaches or like hardcore analysts, as well as sports psychologists and nutritionists. And like the support staff is quite large. I'm not sure.
But yeah, like
quantity versus quality or something, for example, you could always debate a little bit. But I don't think that's true. I think Chinese teams have much bigger staffs, and I'm not sure European staffs are as big as American staffs. Staffs.
That could be true.
Staves.
As like it's been described for T1, like Faker is the coach, and although Faker's a really smart guy, clearly, like one person can't stay on top of the meta completely while playing the game.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to
priority. For example,
I've agreed with you on draft and stuff. The mentality thing, I think mental state is super important, as we've already kind of talked about. But I do think there's some insurmountable differences sometimes. Just like skill still matters, team play still matters. Like RNG are really fucking smart about the game and like how to play out mid to late game situations. T1 has insane laners. Like Zeus is winning both sides of GP Gwen pretty fucking dominantly. You don't like, oh, well, we'll just be smarter. It's like, shit, he wins both sides of skill matchups. What do we do about that? Like that's still a part of the game.
There are ways you can draft around stuff like that. Like obviously what you're saying is true, but you can ban Gwen, like pick Ornn if you think that Zeus is their best player, right?
Yeah,
you can draft in ways that nullify advantages, but I completely agree with you. Like Zeus is cracked, but also I would agree with you in a world where T1 looked like they did in previous years, where they just looked like they don't make mistakes. But I think every team has enters right now.
Yeah,
and
but
Vulcan is EG's enter. I agree. Like that's the thing. But
anyways,
I'm just saying that there's much more volatility.
Let Mark talk, Joshua. Pause and then you keep picking up.
Co-host of Hotline League, Joshua.
Sorry, I have a history in like collegiate debate, so I talk over people. I'm working on it.
You're good, dude. I was gonna say you still have to spend resources, and you have to modify your draft. Like, I'm not saying you can't contain or control good players, but like that's something that the people who have disadvantages, that's a pressure on them. And so I don't think that the teams have roughly equal chance. That being your end statement, you have some good arguments within there, but no fucking way. I would say RNG and T1 eat up about 65% of the pie. 70% of the pie.
My original take was that EG has at least a 20% chance and as good a chance of G2. So my take was that of winning MSI, not this series. Of the whole tournament. So I guess we're kind of in agreement.
What? No, I said that they are taking up 65 to 70. If EG and G2 are both at 20, that's 60% at most. I'm saying that you got an extra. Okay. I'm saying there's more, because if at least G2, and to get to 65 math wise, you have to do 17.5, right?
Okay, wait, we're getting a little into the weeds on the equations here.
Fuck the math. My point is, I disagree. It's more sided towards the Eastern teams than you think.
All right,
yeah, the NA
Joshua,
prove you wrong.
Thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
All hail North America. Mark Z is a non-believer, and we should ostracize him from the church.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Off to the next caller. Thank you to Jobadiah, Kylo Zen, and Liberi for the subs. Thanks, everybody. It's so funny. We get lower viewership during MSI weeks, and I don't know if that's because there's so much more content, or it's because North America is just not watching MSI, and so they're less interested in this. Obviously, we're also doing this, but it also just means I'm down about 30% on my subs. So if you're subbing, just know it's mega appreciated. If you have a Prime, it's always nice. Sucks to do international events and just have not as much people excited. But I do appreciate all of you in chat. First time chatter, Night Angel says, but we're still here. Still, this is your first time in the chat. Zemelcai is here. Zemelcai, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about, my take is that despite a mediocre group stage, Rumble was actually a huge success and has redeemed MSI as a tournament.
Okay.
And I think there's like two different angles to this. So, firstly, one of the main things that people are complaining about with group stage is just that you have like a ton of games that's just major regions shit stomping on minor regions. That's just not the case with Rumble stage. Like, even Saigon Buffalo, who were the people that like most arguably got shafted in Rumble stage, going 2-8, still had like a bunch of interesting games. It's VCS, like it's super bloody. It was just fun to watch, and like even some of their losses still looked really close. You also had stuff like the G2 like upsetting at the start and then going on the huge loss streak. Just a ton of like really interesting narratives. Um, and then also, I think this is kind of less talked about, but uh, because like Riot actually finally sorted out a lot of the ping issues, and just like, even if the 35 ping situation isn't ideal for the whole tournament, because it like got to a place where it worked and it just like functioned properly, that also then just made the tournament better overall, because we could just move on from that as a topic.
All right, so the general take is Rumble stage redeemed MSI, and it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I was a little worried that like people are going to be like, "Oh, okay, everything's fine." You kind of have this moment where because we moved into Rumble and this feels good, we forget the fact that like the beginning of this tournament felt really bad. And I worry a little bit that Riot's takeaway can be, "Oh, hey, people just don't like that stage, but they still watch it anyway, and then they forget about it by the time it's over, so we don't actually need to make format changes." So I guess I'm curious, Zemelcai, are you advocating for less format changes?
So this is the thing. I actually think this is a much more compelling argument for format changes. Like, I think the stark difference between Rumble stage and group stage is an illustration, and like the community response to group stage and Rumble stage is an illustration of like the failings of group stage, but also like is a path for like MSI to become better as a tournament. I don't want to turn this into a formats call because Jesus, that like make this
But I
half
feel
an hour
like you
long.
did though. I feel like you're like, well,
I
this
just put out a
But-
video about formats.
I was gonna say Margsy's video about formats is one good example, or you could like go for something like a GSL. But it clearly proves that the problems with MSI are to do with the games that you're serving up to people, and like Rumble gave people like the type of quality, so you want to take the like parts of Rumble that worked and try and spread it to the earlier parts of the tournament as well.
Okay, you brought me back around. I thought I was going to be a big disagreeer, because I thought the takeaway to Travis's point was going to be, see, MSI is fine, everybody. We just had fun, didn't we? If you ignore the miserable week before. But I think, saying that like, see, look, everyone, we just had fun. MSI can be a good tournament. We just need to change a couple things. I think that's something I would generally agree with. Travis, I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I think it's really tough because you can't separate like you can't separate the first part of the event from this part of the event that just occurred, right? Like, for instance, you can't just say, hey, like, this format works. You just like it demonstrates what worked about Rumble stage was we had 4 major region teams, and then you had PSG and Saigon, who can contest them, all slammed into a group, all taking games off of each other. That's what worked. And so it's like, if you want to, in my mind, it's like if you want to say like, oh, this can be the roadmap to like a better MSI, then the roadmap based off of that is you should just have more of these top teams all play against each other. And maybe that is the roadmap, right? Maybe the takeaway is like you need to figure out a way to condense and get the bad teams out faster or something. But like, it's a tough thing for me to take this and be like, well, Rumble's good, so like we're most of the way there. It's like, yeah, Rumble's good because we got rid of the teams that people didn't like watching in a lot of the major regions. So I don't know. It's like kind of the circular logic thing, I think.
So are you agreeing or not agreeing?
I think it's just I'm doing neither. I think it's like a weird conversation to have, I guess is the best way to put it. Like
sorry, finish your thought.
No, I'm struggling, so feel free to throw me.
All right, here's why I agree with what Zemelcai is saying. You can look at what is making this fun for people and try to make that happen elsewhere in the tournament. So, like, what's making this fun for people is obviously, like you said, matchups between teams that are good, that we're invested in. Obviously, we're going to enjoy watching these teams play more. But I think the games are also just closer. To your point, like, I don't love the VCS as a region. There's nothing about them that makes me go, woohoo, I'm a VCS fan. They just play good League of Legends. Even though they dropped some games, they actually were closer to winning a lot more. The games were competitive with each other. And I think if I were to turn my eye back at then, like, okay, competitive games make them interesting. Saigon versus PSG is an interesting game because they're playing and these games matter. If I look at the Rumble stage, the problem is not that I'm not watching the top teams play enough. I'm not watching the bottom teams play each other enough. And I'm watching games that are irrelevant because the top teams have already qualified. Like, those are the real problems for me. And when you look at Rumble stage, you did still have some dead games towards the end of the day or whatever, but like the games were much closer. There was not nearly as many stomps, which made it more fun to watch. And then obviously we just want to watch G2 versus EG and like none of those games, or G2 versus T1, but that doesn't happen in the first stage of the tournament either. Maybe if you had some way to unlock the top teams playing each other, the bot teams playing each other, get rid of some of those dead games, you know, because that's what makes this part fun. You know,
yes.
I think
I guess maybe I do agree. I just feel like the route to agreement is weird because I don't necessarily. I disagree with the premise of this statement, which is like, oh, the Rumble stage has redeemed MSI, because I just am like, yeah, but the Rumble stage exists as part of MSI with group stage as well, and group stage is bad, so like it's just hard for me to kind of like come on board there. I'd rather just say like
you'd rather
the
be
format
cynical.
still sucks. Like it's not like it might have redeemed MSI, it did not redeem the format, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. So like who cares if it redeemed MSI? The format still sucks, you know?
To your point, Travis, all those things I just said that we enjoy, top teams playing each other in competitive games, is true in any fucking format. Like, you could put the top major regions, their regional champions, into any fucking format and make them play, and we would probably enjoy it. It's hard to fuck up a tournament at this stage.
I also think we got lucky with Rumble in some sense, because a bunch of crazy shit happened that we didn't expect to have happen. And maybe you make the argument of like, well, that's the value of best of ones or something. But like, I mean, who would have predicted G2 ending their win streak by going into a loss streak? And who would have predicted T1 dropping a game to EG? Like, I think a lot of the things that occurred are more based off of like luck. And if you want to believe it, like 35 ping, than it was the format here. So I don't know. I just
if I could interject with a counter argument. So I think that I think it's interesting that because I think that you could say that like any interesting tournament has an invariable element of luck to it. Like because what makes tournaments interesting and why we have tournaments, right, is because we don't know the results before they start. Like, we think we do. Like, we think T1 are going to win. You get people who call in last week and say T1's going to go undefeated in Rumble stage all the way through to, like, the end of the tournament. Rip that person's take. But, like, the reason that things are interesting is because there's that room for variance. So I feel like saying that variance happening is, like, something that shouldn't be occurring and is somehow a benefit that shouldn't exist to the tournament is kind of wrong, because I think that variance occurring is the whole reason that we play the tournament, rather than just like handing T1 the trophy beforehand.
No, I think that's a good point, and I think maybe the idea is that the chance of unexpected things happening is way higher in this Rumble stage than it was in the group stage. And so that is perhaps evidence that like the group stage in this current format is bad, because what it was, as Zale tweeted out, something like 33 out of the 36 games between major and minor regions went to the major region, and the only 3 that didn't was like the G2 matches. People are going to go look his tweet because maybe his stats are slightly wrong, but it was something close to that. And like
it's been going around a lot. There was like, so far there's been 66 best of ones. About half of those are between, major and minor regions, and in those there's only been 3 upsets of like the 30 something.
I think a couple years ago there was the decision to change to this format, and presumably in part because now we'll get China to watch, but I think also because there was this idea of like, oh, the wild cards are really stepping up. Like, I remember that narrative. And in reality, like, I don't think that the wild cards did. Maybe just like Vietnam did. And so and you had CIS for a bit, but unfortunately, like they couldn't attend this event, and I don't know where they're at in terms of their ability to do so in the future, and also in terms of their general competitiveness. And so like I think the thesis of let's change the tournament so that we have chances for wild card, like they've not earned it, they unearned it. If they earned it previously, they've unearned the right to face the major teams now, because G2 was the only one who did it, and let's be clear, EU sucks compared to NA. Of course they're going to lose to wildcard teams.
Well, and to that point though, like I do like seeing the major regions compete earlier in the tournament. I'm not like morally opposed to China playing. It's just like, so Zemelcai's point about like the chance for the unexpected to happen, I think that's more of a symptom of the problem by making the top teams play them. Like, it's just that group stage format sucks ass, dude. Pool 1, Pool 2, Pool 3, Pool 4, all in the group together is like, it's the gaps between them are huge. Whereas a Pool 3 team at Worlds could be like the 3rd best Chinese team, and who knows how good they are. They could be, like Pool 3 at Worlds is so different than Pool 3 at MSI, and we're building our groups like it's fucking Worlds teams, where in reality, the Pool 3 team's probably never going to win a fucking game over the Pool 1 seed. And even if they win 1, it doesn't matter. So to that point, I think trying to find a way to make them interesting because you don't know what's going to happen is because the format's bad and you have to fix it. So yeah, I totally agree that these are things that it's also just an opportunity cost is the way to put it. It's like, if you can make something better, why not? Like, yes, this group stage was fun. I agree. But like, we can also make something better.
No, you mean Rumble stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I agree with like what you said overall. I think if the one issue that I'd specifically say in response to your video, Mark C, is that whilst I like your pitch and I think it's good, the one flaw in it is that I think that Riot is too addicted to group stages, and I don't think that like they'd be willing to scrap group and rumble, which is why we should instead go for the solution of making groups a GSL format. I'll just let people Google that, but like Valorant uses it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's literally just something they could easily incorporate, and then make Rumble best of 3 so that we're not watching like 66 best of 1s or whatever it was. Those two changes, but yeah, that's a whole nother call.
My counter to that would be just imagine my system as groups that end after one day. You start with a 12-team group, and then there's 2 16 groups the next day.
Thank you, Zemelcai, for the call. I do appreciate your caveating around Riot's addiction. Is there anything you want to shout out before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I want to shout out Mark Z. This is I want you to watch something. I don't know if you're aware of the channel Secret Base, but they do sports documentaries, and their series Dorktown I think you would find really interesting. And I want to have like the start of next week's Hotline League. I want to hear Marksy's thoughts on Captain Ahab: The Story of Dave Steve.
I don't
I'm
feel like
looking
Mark
up on-
watches very many sports documentaries.
I don't, but I'm not. I just like I watched the Julia Child documentary. I just like documentaries.
It's great documentaries, and like John
didn't you watch a
Boyce, who
biopic?
does them, is like, it's like one of the most fascinating ways of like presenting data and telling stories. It's
Wait,
very
there's.
good.
I just clicked one thinking it would be the entire documentary. It's part 4 and it's an hour and 15 long. How long is this
like,
fucking documentary?
It's 4 parts. It's like 4 hours total, but you can like watch each part. Like, it's very well split up.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Zemelcai, thank you for the call.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Have a good one. All right. Off to get the next caller. Thank you to...
Are you sure you don't want to do an ad read now?
Yeah, I want to do one after the next one.
Okay.
Because it's only been about 20 minutes or so. 40 minutes. 30? Osiris, the Apostle, thank you. Shindai, the Carry Bear, Boom Shakalaka, Tactics, Gaiden TV, It's Kyler, and Shavul. Thank you, everybody, for the subs. Climbing back the sub stuff. Maybe part of it is I haven't been streaming Genshin as much lately, so maybe I need to do that. Kayokio, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, that's fine.
What? First off, are you playing League of Legends right now?
No.
Okay, it's saying to me that
Oh,
you're
I'm in an empty lobby.
Okay. It's Discord's offering me to join you. Where are you calling from?
From Quebec City, Canada.
Quebec City, Canada. You're a little quiet. I've turned you up as much as I can. I don't know if you can get closer to your mic.
How does that sound fine?
Yeah, that's way better. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My take was that the bias from casters and trying to push storylines is making the main broadcast less enjoyable, and that it also undermines the performance of some players during the tournament.
Ah, interesting. Okay. The bias from casters and trying to push some storylines. Would you say that Mark Zimmerman in the group stage?
Whoa,
was one of
I
these
wasn't
individuals?
casting. I wasn't casting Rumble. He was talking about Rumble.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay.
he would have been here last week.
Exclusively Rumble. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to where are you seeing this? Go ahead and elaborate a little bit.
Well, I'm not gonna say obviously any caster's name or anything, and this is not directed at anyone in particular. But for example, there's a lot of like during games like backhanded comments about lower region players undermining their performance. So for example, we'll see some casters say things like, "Oh, this guy is inting right now doing X play," and when a player such as let's say Caps, for example, is making a really terrible play, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So making comments like that is undermining those lower region players and makes the game and the broadcast itself less enjoyable. And also it undervalues how good the broadcast and the people watching should take a lower region teams seriously or not. So for example, we saw G2 lose 2-game to PSG, so we shouldn't necessarily give the benefit of the doubt from pool 1 teams players making mistake like, oh, or like the famous comments we saw during the group stage, oh, Caps sensed it. Like, I'm not sure why we're giving the benefit of the doubt on really questionable plays, but we're not also doing the same thing for minor regions.
So are you does this include group stage? I know Mark was making a joke, but does this include group stage, Kayokio, or was it mostly PSG?
I've watched every single game from EU and NA. So that's what I've seen from those games in particular.
Gotcha.
So that might include us versus Order. Us meaning G2 and EG versus Order games.
Yes.
So generally speaking, it sounds like what you're saying is a minor region team makes a bad play and people are like, oh man, like that was just so bad, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas a NA or EU team makes a bad play and they go like, oh, that was an unfortunate mistake that they just made there. Like you're saying it's just kind of in the tone of the way that they push it?
Exactly, and it also spills over from sometimes the desk or when we're talking about we're trying to push really hard the narrative of Jankos and, for example, Caps being really good in this tournament. But I think it's kind of doing a disservice to players like Targamas. I think he's by far the most surprising player of this tournament. I think he's been smurfing in a lot of games, and this trying to push so far that Caps is a really good player and Jankos at top side of the map, it's taking away from some players' performance, such as the rookie support for G2.
So coming into this call, I didn't know the angle you're going to take about the anti-narratives, because there's a lot of times that people push back against narratives, and I feel like they're just being babies. And it's like this, like, oh, I'm actually the smart one and fuck these narratives kind of thing. And I thought you're going to, that's not quite the angle you're taking. And I find myself more sympathetic to the point that, like, when good players make mistakes, because they have a lot of name value, they often aren't called out quite as hard. Whereas teams from minor regions or that are not from our fan bases, we're more inclined to call them out. And so you get this mismatch where, like, yeah, they may be a little worse than us, but they get painted as much worse as when a good team does something dumb, it's not necessarily called out, or a player specifically. So I think I'm aligning with you. The only problem is, even though I'm watching these games live, I'm like kind of out of it. And like, I honestly don't remember any specific plays that you're talking about. Like the Cap sensed it one, I legitimately do not know.
Yeah, that's part of my challenge too, is I have not seen this, and it's hard for me not to just assume that it's a situation where, like, it's not, like, Kaya, would you say that it happens consistently throughout the entire game? Or, because part of the reason I ask is because if Caps is like 4-0 and then he makes a stupid play and dies once, and people are like, oh, that was unfortunate, I think that's a lot different than, like, if, well, even though I know this, you're not talking about major regions, if JoJo goes like 0-4 and on the fourth kill they're like, oh man, JoJo's just really struggling, can't get it together, it's just making all these mistakes left and right. Like I think context matters, and the fact that so many of these minor region teams were losing every single time, I feel like it's probably just more likely that they're going to get called out versus their major region counterparts, right?
Yeah, for sure. They're obviously going to get called out more because the result of the game makes that they're losing more games than the major regions. But I think we should see, like, every play objectively as, like, this was a bad play, instead of just saying it was a bad play because a bad player made it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here's the thing. I'm actually pretty simple. Like, I just don't have a good enough memory for the calls themselves to know exactly good examples to use. And again, I know you're not trying to call anyone out. I will say Freak flames everyone fairly. Some people in Twitch chat are talking about this. Freak is easily the most critical caster in the world. Probably in any region, I would bet. But he'll do that pretty fairly, where he was like ripping on Guma and stuff like that. And when G2 was winning, he was giving them their dues. And I think he was enjoying when they were losing too. I don't know. I know for me, it was actually against NA, one where I missed the setup for it, and I was kind of flaming Vulcan. And like, it was a mistake, but like not at all for like any of the reasons I understood, because casting can sometimes be hard to track everything going on in the game, because like sometimes I'm pulling up build, like you have two computers there. You have the computer that the game is on, and then you'll have like another just computer. And so like sometimes I'm looking up build stuff. I'm looking up historical information really quickly to make a point I want to make. Sometimes I'm just not looking at the game closely because I'm looking at my caster to like indicate something. You have producers in your ears, not to make excuses, but like there are times where you will miss what just happened on screen, which is the setup to then the kill happening. And so someone in chat mentioned there's a time where Kobe was flaming someone for dying to Zeus, but there was a gank coming. And so it was between either like killing yourself trying to 1v1 Zeus or getting 2v1 by the gank. I would not be surprised if Kobe was doing one of these things I just mentioned, looked back, saw this guy take what looked like a 1v1, and then was like, oh, what an idiot. He couldn't win that 1v1, which is not good, to be fair. But like I did that with Vulcan in a play where I was like, how the fuck did he get there on the map? That was dumb. And then when I was doing the blame game later, I rewatched the play, and I'm like, wait, he was there for a totally justified reason. I'm an asshole and an idiot. Whoops.
You should have put that in the blame game.
It was like too tangential, but like I thought about it where I was like, oh shit, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, you should make that the bonus blame at the end to yourself.
Yeah, but like these kinds of things happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if some natural biases creep in, where like sometimes you see the exact setup to break it down. You're like, oh well, the bad player died,
so or you're just in a world where you're like, you have that built in your mind of like, oh, Caps is doing so well this tournament. Oh, he's on it, and like everyone is pushing this so hard that whenever he makes the mistake, you're gonna give him some extra slack that you're not giving to like the mid laner on the other team, and so it can be kind of like a self-perpetuating cycle. Kaio, the only thing I can think of where I was kind of having this, and I was messaging Mark about it, was I think it was like the beginning of the second day, where it was like PSG versus EG, and the casters and the whole broadcast was just like, this is the battle for fourth, and I was like, this feels really weird. Like
I do remember that. Yeah,
I like, and I was messaging Mark about it, where I'm just like, everybody is universally saying this is the battle for fourth. Like, we're on the beginning of the second day of Rumble, and like, I know that. Look, I think it is reasonable on a show like Hotline League or on some of these other shows, or even like the Diver Euphoria, to like speculate on, say like, okay, well, we think it's going to come down to a battle between PSG and EG probably, because G2 and T1 and everybody look really good. But I think it's really weird when you're like starting off the second day of the Rumble stage and you're like, so these three teams are getting out in the top three, and these two teams are the only chance of. It's like, it becomes really strange from a storytelling and broadcast perspective. And so that is one place where I will say, like, I felt like the bias and expectations, like it was kind of like, well, why are we having the rest of these games if like we've already declared that this is the battle for fourth in this match? I thought that was very strange. So
yeah, to wrap it up and go back to like some of the narrative points, I wish I had paid more attention to know exactly. So I was just kind of spewing out some caster information. Yeah, I think that's a fair point, that people maybe paint with too broad of a brush at times. But I don't want to shade anyone, and I know Kayokio doesn't, and so I think it's a good call out that like this definitely, I agree, this happens, and something that, you know, people should be careful with.
How do you fix it, Mark? Let me ask you this, because we're not going to call anybody out, but like, how is this something that changes, right? Because I think, unless, I'm not saying that the answer is to call people out, but it's like, it's the type of thing where I just worry it will continue to occur unless there's like a broader conversation that occurs around it.
I mean, this maybe is a question I won't be able to answer, because how big of a problem is it really? I understand for Kayokio it feels bad, and I think for some people who are watching the game, and like when I'm VOD reviewing, I'm so much more in tune about what's going on in the game. Even if I've never seen the game before, I'm so much more aware of what's going on, because I don't have to worry about talking. I'm not have to worry about stepping on someone's toes when I'm casting. Like, you're not doing anything. You're just fucking watching the game. And like, you'll probably notice some things. And so on some level, it's just like inherent that casters are going to have you're human, so you're going to have your biases for what you think heading into the games. Like, if I think Jojo Pune, what I said at the top of the show, has a legitimate argument about who was better this Rumble stage, him or Caps, someone else is just going to think Caps is better than Jojo because, historic, you know? And like, we're each going to have our biases we're bringing in, and that's going to influence what you say. Then there's the imperfect nature of casting, that like, you're going to make mistakes. I think that you can't get rid of it. And I would say, how big of a problem is it really, other than getting under the skin, unfortunately, of people who are watching the game closely? And, you know, when you get something wrong, they get pissed. Like, all the Twitter analysts, when you misspeak, will come out and, you know, clip you saying it wrong and be like, you fucked this up. And you're like, yeah, well, what do you want me to do?
Well,
you know,
Kaio,
like, I'm trying to be better.
Kaio, it sounds like Mark doesn't care about your issue and does not plan to work on it at all. And
hold on, before you dismiss him, Kayokio, did anything I say here make you more, even if it doesn't change your opinion, does it make you more sympathetic to how some of this stuff happens?
I'm for sure more sympathetic towards the casters that are casting like directly live, because obviously like you can't catch everything you're seeing and necessarily have all the angles. But I think there's more egregious part that are like, for example, on the desk. I'll just give like the example that marked me the most is at some point they were talking about how Yankos is finding a lot of really creative batting and ganks, and they show a play and they get one kill and they cut the play off. But what happened after that one kill is that they traded 2 players from G2 on EG that time. Inspired came and read the play and killed Yankos, and after kill, I think it was Flackhead. So I was like, we're saying he's finding creative paths, and we're cutting the clip short. Like, arguably, you could say like he just made a bad play here. The net, it was net negative for G2 that play, but we're cutting the clip short. So just
That's great.
Things like that are kind of yikes.
It's like, okay, cut the camera. Yep, that was great. That was exactly what we wanted. It goes so good. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, God, this is making me want to do a segment for, like, if EG play, like, RNG and lose the game, I just want to take all of EG's good clips, good starts to team fights, and just cut the clips early and just paint the whole thing of EG playing well, and then fucking like, oh, yeah, by the way, RNG won the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So here's one angle I'll give you. Again, I don't know what happened in this play. I don't know the segment. Sometimes there are miscommunications between the producers who are making these clips and the talent who is saying things over them and appearing on camera. I'm a rather critical person. And so I definitely get into arguments about, why did this element roll now? It made me look dumb. Why did this element not be exactly what I requested? Why are these things happening? And you don't have control as the one speaking about what your point is. And so someone could be saying, hey, Yankos is really good, and there's a clip that involves Yankos, and someone decides, oh, they said Yankos' name, I guess I'll fire the clip. And even though the person talking knows that this clip does not correlate at all to what the fuck they just said, someone fired that clip up, and now you're like, well, what do I do? Because I'm talking about Yankos. Yankos is on screen. Do I just destroy my point being like, oh yeah, here's where he's going to kill himself anyways, ignore what I just said? Or do you just like roll through it and hope that like people like you don't notice that the clip and what you're saying are mismatched? This happens sometimes. It's tough. I don't want to sound like I'm just throwing like shade at producers. They're fucking idiots. Haha. I mean, it's hard to know sometimes where talent's going to go, because if you miss the cue, then the talent's also pissed at you because, hey, I said the guy's name. Why didn't you roll the clip with the name in it? You know, like they don't know where we're always going. And sometimes we ramble, and sometimes we're incomprehensible messes. This is just kind of the sticky bits, the gross insides of broadcasting, where like it could be no one's fault. So I don't know in that situation if like this was them actually pulling a stupid clip and it was like actually disingenuous and like shame on you people, talent, requesting that, or if it was a snafu with broadcast just like playing a clip when they shouldn't have.
So Kayo, not only does Mark not care, but if there's any mistakes, it's the producer's fault, and you should blame production. The casters are not fucking this stuff up, okay?
I think these conversations are good because no one understands the craft of actually putting on this show. And, like, it's a time where I can finally talk about these things. You fucker.
More like the crap of putting on the show.
Oh, my God.
Mark thinks that Riot should start hiring people that can read a fucking play instead of making him look bad.
I know I'm such a whiner. I know I'm such a whiner to my producers. I'm sorry. That's why I said that. Like, it's going to sound funny if any of them are listening to this and hearing me go like, oh, it could have just been the producers fucking that up. Probably not the talent's fault. Like, I know that we're annoying. I know that we're so obnoxious.
I know they're obnoxious. Kyle, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Well, spoken like a true Quebec caller. Anyway, thank you for the call. We'll catch you next time. All right. Let's take a quick break to talk about Grubhub. Guys, I have yet another Grubhub code for you. I know this is the only reason you tune into the show. You sit through the whole thing so that you can save money on your Grubhub order. And this week, the code is 10 Travis or Tent Ravis, depending on how you decide to look at it. But one word, 10 Travis, the word TEN spelled out at the start. That'll get you $10 off $20. This is the first 500 people who use it, and it's valid May 23rd to May 29th. Again, it's $10 off your Grubhub order of $20 plus, only for the first 500 orders. So please go check that out. It's actually awesome when you guys use that. And I mean, that's a pretty good amount of money. You can order some Chipotle, some Jersey Mike's. We love Jersey Mike's. $10 off, $20 on this. It's fantastic. So go check it out. Go order some good food. Use this code. Save some money. It's fantastic. Thank you so much to Grubhub for calling or for sponsoring the show, and for our callers and our viewers who use their codes. All right, Mark is off to grab the last caller. Walker is Duder says this promo's just a hair too campy for my liking. I wasn't expecting this.
Get roasted, idiot.
Rob is here. Rob, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Seoul, South Korea.
Seoul, South Korea. Oh, wait, are you the person who messaged me and said that you were going to go to the...
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. Okay.
And I called in a month ago, too. I
Yes.
was talking about MSI tickets.
Yeah, you could. So you got a ticket.
Yeah, the first day of Rumble Stage.
First day of Rumble Stage. Okay. So break it down for us.
So it was
What's
when G2 beat T1 and then beat RNG, and it was all hype and everything. So
Yes. Okay. Go for it. What do you got for us on the show?
So the narrative around like the Busan Library, like people talking about how shitty the Korean audience is. A lot of Reddit has been saying like Koreans only cheer for Koreans. Korean audiences suck. Please don't have any more tournaments in Asia, etc. And I think a lot of it is to kind of pile onto Riot Production, like Mark was last call. Just a lot of it is the production, the venue, and some of the choices by Riot Korea and everything. I don't really think it's anything to do with like the crowd not being excited enough.
Well, so paint us a picture because of your experience at the event. Because I will say I've been a little surprised at how few like crowd shots we get, like what the event looks like. It's been really hard to tell.
I sent you a picture on Twitter, actually.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's a shot from, I'm in the very back, so there's nothing behind me.
Wait, where is this?
I'll say it on Skype, Travis.
Okay.
Yeah. So during the T1 game at the very beginning, it was pretty full and very excited. But one thing is that the venue is not very big. It's just kind of like a room at a convention center. And it's just like 4 screens, a bunch of folding chairs. And there's not really that much there. It's not like a big stadium or anything. And there are not that many people, especially during the middle games, because it's going on from 5 to 11. So at some point, people go to eat dinner. And so I think that this was one of the middle games in the picture. It's Saigon Buffaloes versus EG. And you can see that there are a lot of chairs empty.
Yeah.
And there were not even that many chairs to begin with. Like even during T1, it wasn't a huge amount of people. I think it's maybe, I'm pretty bad at eyeballing because I haven't gone to many other events, but maybe like 1,000. I'm not sure. But anyway, another thing is that I don't really feel like they built much hype. There's not really any crowd interaction. It's kind of just they're playing the Korean broadcast on the screens. There's no in-person talent, like broadcast talent. There was no fan interaction. It's just kind of like sit down and watch the screens, and occasionally there will be like a team on the stage. A lot of the crowd in the middle can't even see because the screens are both like the far left and far right. So you can't even really see what's going on unless you like get up and go walk somewhere else. It just wasn't like a very great like fan experience, I think.
Have you gone to any North American events or even just like the LCS?
No, I wanted to go to Newark, but it got canceled.
Well, one. Sorry,
so I have no frame of reference.
I was gonna say because the whole no interaction with the crowd is very weird to me. For example, in Houston, you probably don't see it because most people at home, it just goes to commercial or whatever. But there's usually a hype man whose job it is to keep the crowd energized and invested and not just like checking their phones. So like they'll be shouting things out. They'll be like, "Hey, I'm here with this guy. It's T1." They're like just like walking around. They're doing shit. They're throwing shit in the crowds. They're doing like little mini games. Like, all right, what's the answer to this question? And they're doing these things. And to hear that there was none of that,
Yeah, there was zero. And all the hype stuff was just like playing the same hype video that you see at home. It's literally just playing the Korean broadcast on the screen. From what I could tell, the Korean broadcast talent was probably broadcasting from Seoul, except for one interviewer who was like in a back press room or something. I don't think that they had any broadcast talent in person. It was just camera people, security, players, and the fans. There was nothing else, no broadcast.
This is
and
so fascinating.
Outside of this room, the only like fan interaction was a small merch booth, and it was just Riot merch. It wasn't even like any team merch. There was no like team, like there was no like T1 reps or any teams at all having like anybody there selling their merch or giving out anything.
Were there concessions? Was there like food and drink, or did people have to leave to get food?
You had to leave to go get food. So, I mean, there were a lot of restaurants within walking distance, but basically you were going to skip a game if you wanted to go eat.
Yeah, to your point, you know, people leave for dinner. I was like, initially I was going to be like, well, that's kind of lame that people leave for dinner, but then you have to, unless you're just going to not eat for 6 hours.
What?
Yeah.
Do you have any other pictures that you can send us? Caller?
Yeah. I can find real quick, but
yeah,
if you want to talk while I
yeah.
Well, Travis, while he looks, this is surprising to me.
Yeah, no, it's surprising to me. I knew, so I was. This is why it's great. TGI has on the ground reporting from Rob.
I was about to say my joke was going to be, Travis, I know you're not a reporter anymore, but it would be interesting to do a video about this, because I know that you've been tweeting as well that like it feels like the LCK crowd is getting slammed for the Busan Library memes. And initially, you and I were like, oh, maybe it was just the mix. But it sounds like on any given game, there's like 5 factors for why you might not have a hyped crowd.
I mean, so it's definitely partially the mix, because what happens for sure is okay, in a normal team fight situation, what you have is like a ramp up where you have like the audience starts to get excited and you can feel it build, and then like they start going crazy, and when kills happen, they're like gasping and all that stuff, and then like at the end, people are like clapping and cheering. What it feels like frequently happens on the broadcast right now is like a kill happens, and then somewhere in the back, somebody goes, oh shit, somebody died. And they press a button that unmutes like a really shitty mix of cheers, and they hold it for like half a second, and then they let go and it insta-mutes again. And it's like fascinating to me.
That's what I think too.
So like I thought that at the very least, one of the big issues was this is a video, so I'll have to figure out how to get it on the show. But do you mind if I show your Twitter, Rob?
No, it's fine.
Okay. I just want to double check.
While you feel that,
I'm sending another one too.
The other thing I'll say that makes it potentially difficult for the mixing side, for the actual people doing that, I don't think that the production has very much, if any, ground thing. Like for themselves, I don't know how many people from the Berlin studio, the Neo production, were in Korea to like control this crowd audio levels, whereas for Houston, for example, like that was all NA production, baby. And so if they had a problem with how the crowd sounded, like they had the audio people, they had control of the broadcast, they had like the microphones, they could go figure out where they should be set. Like it was all under their control. I wouldn't be surprised if in this situation the Berlin studio is just being given something from the Korean side. I don't know for sure, but you might just be getting like an audio track, like some feed that's like audio noise, like crowd noise, and it could just not be good. And so that's why they don't run it most of the time.
So that is fair, Mark. I think what is my response to that is like, to the average fan, who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
No,
like
for sure, yeah.
Like, because this is, and you and I, the only reason I want to bring it up is, or I'm not trying to call you out, but it's like we all tend to go like, oh man, like Riot X was fucking over this Riot X, and so that's why this happened. To the average fan, they're like, Riot fucking failed, and they're right. Like they have not done. This is the first international event with fans, and it feels like there are not fans there. It feels like they've got like a weird audio track that they play when somebody dies, and so that's like problem one. So problem one for me, and I was surprised there was not more people complaining about it, was like the audio mix. And I think the people that aren't complaining about it are complaining because it's hard. It's like a very subtle thing, and we're also used to having events where like there's no crowd, that like we all kind of forget what it's like to have a crowd. But this is a whole nother problem that I did not realize, because I thought it was just the audio mix, and now I'm realizing that, like, Rob, do you think this was a shitty event?
I enjoyed it because it was my first league event, but yeah, I think that Riot kind of really dropped the ball. I have another little point about the audio mix too, is everybody got thunder sticks on their seats, and I think most people are, unless they're really passionate, are not vocally cheering. They're usually like really clapping hard with the thunder sticks. But there were a lot of moments where I would go back and watch the VOD, and then that didn't get picked up at all. So I think maybe vocal cheering seemed to get picked up a little bit, but a lot of the clapping, I think, didn't, and made it seem like they're more silent, like they're sitting there angrily or something.
I mean, I think it also just sucks. Sorry to cut you off, but I think part of the thing is also like the venue sucks for creating like normally you have a venue where you have like stadium seating, or like it's more concave, and so you have a situation where the audio is able to like actually percolate. I saw somebody in the chat say this feels like a middle school like conference, or like middle school presentation Gymnasium, where they bring everybody into like the auditorium and just like sit them in shitty chairs, and like that's exactly what this is. Like I was surprised because this feels like MLG in 2012, not the fucking biggest esports event in the world. Can you imagine if you were like a sponsor and you walked in and you're like, oh yeah, we spent millions of dollars on sponsoring this event, and like this is the in-person experience? Like I'm glad that you did. First off, thank you for calling in. Second off, thank you for sending this stuff, because like what you're getting is kind of Mark and our live reaction to what seems to be like.
I didn't know what I expected the venue like looked like, and anytime you get shots, I mean, Riot is very strategic about making the shots look good. So it's players on stage, it's like the crowd from certain angles or whatnot. And like some of the stuff is honestly underwhelming, you know, like you have 2 international tournaments a year, and like this is more underwhelming than most regional finals I've been to.
I think that like for a Korean fan, I can imagine a lot of them probably have at some point been able to go to LCK in Seoul because it's a small country, and they probably were not super hyped, because I imagine the experience in LCK is a lot better. You have fans of both teams like cheering, like their team chant and everything. Also, like the champ select, I think on the English broadcast was muted for the audience. Like there was no audience sounds coming through, but there were some moments that I like went back and looked, like when Caps locked in Zoe versus RNG, the crowd was like going crazy because they know the Caps is really good at Zoe and everything, and there was just like none of that came through. So when I was like sitting there, like looking at Reddit between games and everybody's flaming the audience and how quiet they are, I was like getting really mad. So that's part of why I wanted to call in.
No, I think this is a really cool, and I do hope, Travis, you make, because not everyone's going to stick around for the last 15 minutes of Hotline League.
No, I mean, I might clip this out as a separate video, because this is just fascinating to me.
Because even these moments, like as much as we're saying, oh, you know, like the venue and they didn't have hype people and all that stuff, I'm like looking at these, you know, the sticks and the crowd cheering, and I'm like, that would get picked up if it was like mixed correctly with like a good audio source. Like those sticks are loud. I've heard those sticks at like 2018, 2019 Worlds
100%.
quite a bit. Yeah, and if you're telling me that people are cheering at Champ Select, I can just imagine when we're getting all these crazy flex picks between G2 and EG in the last game, you know, like what that I can like hear what that should sound like. Yes. And now that I'm thinking on it, I'm like, of course. And like I was thinking like, well, it's the middle of the night for me. Maybe I'm just like being stupid. But now that you're saying this stuff, I'm like, yeah, wait, where is this like atmosphere that is just missing and what makes events
normally what happens is like a crazy thing gets locked in and the crowd goes, ah, and then like the casters are excited and they're talking over it, and like it builds into this, whereas like this is just not, it's just not happening. And like to your point, Rob, like it's actually crazy to me that there's no central screen. You know what's like, I'm really, if anybody follows the Korean forums like like Invin, or there's another one that a lot of people use.
Weibo, if you mean for...
No, I think it's Naver.
Yeah.
But like because here's what would happen if this happened in the US. Like if this was Worlds or something like that, there would be a Reddit thread where people would be like, yo, this event sucks. Like there have been mistakes that they have made in the past where like people couldn't see a screen. And so what they do is they roll out like TVs so that people can see better. And like, there's a bunch of drama.
They're actually
like,
good usually.
Yeah. Normally like you get a giant Reddit thread, a lot of people talking about it. And then, really quickly, sometimes they will fix it overnight. Obviously this I don't think is super fixable because it's literally just like half a convention center with a bunch of chairs. But like, I'd be very curious to know what Korean fans' thoughts are on this. And I wonder if they know that a lot of their audio is not getting picked up. Like, I don't know. But this is just fascinating to me.
Yeah. And I also have some like real quick thoughts on the RNG thing, because that's also kind of related. Is like the fans get a lot of flame for not cheering for RNG.
Yeah.
It's been talked to death about like why would you cheer for your rival team and everything like that. I'm not going to make like sports comparisons, but I will just say like when you have the only like trickle of fan interaction that you have is that there is a team on stage, and when you have one actual team on stage and 5 empty chairs with a screen with faces on it, you're going to probably be more biased to cheer for the team that's actually there, because that's the only thing that you're actually getting from this live experience, is to be able to see the team and, see them in person. They bow for you at the end of the game. They wave at the crowd as they go up to bow and everything. So, I mean, RNG, when they show the cams, or when they show the cam of their room, like when the game is over, they just kind of like get up and leave. They don't like stay around or wave to the camera or bow or anything like that. And I understand it's stressful for them, but it's like the whole, like, I feel like the people in person are very biased regardless of all the others, country factors and all the politics and everything. And the rivalry, it's already predisposed for them to not cheer for RNG, but the fact that they're not even there makes it, I think, more excusable for the fans to not be interested in seeing them win.
I just had sorry, I don't know. I think you made good points there, Rob. One thing I was just thinking about is I've seen some people talking about how at the same time the CS:GO major was going on, and I think a lot to kind of bring it back to something we were talking about, I think even before the start of the show, which is what Riot is doing in terms of budget cuts. And I think, okay. So I haven't talked to her at all about this. I don't want people to think that I'm like, whatever. But Shox made the decision to go work the CS:GO major. Now, it's in her home country, and I think it's really great. But my God, even if it wasn't in her home country, she probably made the right decision. Because when Riot does stuff like this, where they're like, we're going to hold this giant event, but all the broadcast is going to be in a different time zone where you have to wake up super early. They have a shitty audio mix, so you don't have any of the fans' audio coming in. This is an international event, and it's being held in something that looks like a high school gymnasium. I just what are we doing? It's got a shitty format. What is this event? Riot could do. They used to be the best. They put on all these events where it just felt fucking amazing, and we're now at a point where this is what we're doing, and I'm just how did we get here, guys? How is this what we've become? Rob, thank you so much for. Raz in chat says I'm reporting Mark for this. Rob, thank you so much. This was invaluable. And I guess one of the downsides of me not being physically at an event, so hopefully in the future I'm able to do more of this and talk about this earlier. But
so the one great fan interaction was that Caps's dad was in the audience near us, And after G2 beat RNG, people were lining up and taking selfies with him for over half an hour. He was doing videos. He was like posing. He was he was being like the best, basically, at giving the fans some kind of experience that they won't forget. So that was really awesome. So shout out to him.
Thank God Caps' dad
should be the hype man.
Is there to save this fucking event and the in-person experience at it.
I want him on stage with a microphone being like, let's see some cheers for G2.
This is where we've gotten, where we need Caps' dad to come to the event to give people a reason. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. Well, fucking moments like this, Rob, are why I'm really happy we do things like Hotline League, because it's so cool to get like a fan's real take and fans' perspective, because this is something that I don't think any of us would have known about. So thank you again, Rob, for calling in. Anything you want to shout out?
I think I just did my shout. So I guess shout out to my wife for letting me take vacation, use this vacation time to call into a podcast.
Yes. Well, thank you as well, and thank you to her for helping us. Hopefully you have a good rest of your vacation, and I really appreciate it. So we'll catch you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Raz in chat says, I'm telling LCS heads what Mark has been enabling in this conversation. So
it's not my show. Whose channel is this? I can't control the content that appears on here.
Mark, who pulled that collar? You're supposed to censor this stuff for the sake of Riot Games.
I didn't think he was gonna. I thought we were gonna roast the Busan Library. That's why I pulled it. No, I knew he was gonna defend the Busan Library. I just, I didn't see the pictures. I didn't see the videos. I didn't know.
It's so crazy. It's actually so crazy. Like, I just think about that in comparison to spring finals just now.
Yep, exactly. I think for you and I, and NA fans in particular, it is the most jarring.
And like, maybe I know that there was just a COVID spike and all that stuff, but like, I feel like at the very least there are things they could be doing to make that a lot better. And wow. All right. Well, I'm sad to end the show on this note, because it's actually one of the craziest Hotline League calls I think we've ever had. But thank you to Rob for calling in on that. Mark, anything you want to plug?
No. I should have another blame game this week for the bracket stage, or from a Rumble stage. I haven't picked a topic yet, though. The problem is everything that I was going to blame game kind of got reversed on the last day. I was like, oh, is T1 overrated? Let's talk about it. Then they fucking beat RNG and they look actually really good. I mean, I can still do these, but like, is G2 like terrible or something? And then they beat EG and like stopped their slide and looked like okay. I already did EG. RNG is the number one team. Like, I think a lot of the sexiest topics ended up kind of resolving themselves before I got a chance to respond to them. So I'm a little bit struggling to know what I want to talk about.
If you have a good blame game idea, tweet it at Mark, because he needs ideas.
I guess I could do a blame game on the Busan Library now that we have this context, but I don't know.
That seems like a great way to ensure you never get international opportunities again.
No, that's the problem. They should have kept me in Berlin, so I couldn't have done this show. Would never have known.
Yeah.
If you keep me busy working on the product, I'll never have a chance to slander.
It's a bribe, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raz says, give me Mark's spot. Okay.
You want the blame game too? You want?
I think he means.
I'll go to Twitch chat.
All right, guys. That's it. I did 2 interviews that'll be coming out probably tomorrow, the next day, with Broken Blade, and tomorrow as we record this, but Broken Blade and Inspired, which I thought were pretty good. So be sure to check those out. Also, tomorrow night is Media Night, Media Day, I guess, in Korea, where there's a bunch of opportunities to ask player stuff. I wonder if normally they have the opportunity to ask Riot official stuff, but if I recall, the Media Day will provide an opportunity for engagement with players from the 4 remaining MSI knockout stage teams. Each team will participate in a press conference and ask their questions from media. Normally, wait, did they cancel the opportunity to ask Riot executive stuff? So last year they did, and people could go find this on my channel. Before finals at MSI, they did a opportunity to ask John Needham and Nas a bunch of questions, and then half the questions ended up being about the format, and they dodged it a ton. Or maybe that was Worlds. Maybe I'm thinking about Worlds. I think it was Worlds where they got that's what it was. But I think normally at these MSI events, they also on their media day have Riot people ask questions or available to ask questions, and it'd be funny if they normally do that and they're not doing it this time. Otherwise, I would be asking about this stuff. Okay. Anyway, just stay tuned for that. There's going to be press conferences on the Twitch channel tomorrow. Thank you to Rob for calling in. Thanks everybody else. This has been the show. I will catch you all later.